As a kid, a garden like this was my dream. It's got water, it's got a brook, it has beautiful greenery, it has good soils for native species and for many exotic species. So this was really a garden waiting quite late in my gardening career, but no finer way to actually round off a botany and gardening life than to have a place like this. The garden is a constant source of challenges, but I guess for gardeners, that's what gets us out of bed every day and keeps you inspired. I'm Kingsley Dixon. I'm a botanist, and I'm also a passionate gardener. This place is just an hour south of Perth. It's in the Darling Range. It's a really unusual place because it has weather, I guess, pretty much like Tasmania. The garden itself sits at the bottom of a deep valley, and that provides us with this unique microclimate. The hills rise to about 330 metres on all sides of us, so it's deep. It's often dark. So the tree ferns are really unusual. We've got a very large number of them, in the many thousands. The deep valley, the rich soils, and the permanent water have really created for them the perfect location that you would find in any parts of Victoria. Because we're embedded in the Lane Pool Nature Reserve, and because of the steepness, we have a continuous forest all the way through to the forest in that nature reserve. The 12 acres of garden that we have here is a lot of work, but you know, it's the cheapest gym membership in the world. So my husband Lionel has been along for the entire journey. We were married in this very garden. The whole thing is done as a perfect partnership between the pair of us. It couldn't have happened any other way. It was having a botanically inclined family that I think led me into really appreciating plants and wildlife, but it was always the plants. And by the time I was 8 years old, I had my own little shade house with my own little collection of plants. When I was 12 years old, the summer holidays had started, and there was this sign for a nursery, and it said Native Plant Nursery. And I had found my mentors for the next stage of my life, which was really learning about native plants and the complexity. During my whole university career, and I spent those 3 years in my undergraduate course revelling in really starting to understand how plants grow and operate, and then went on to a PhD with a wonderful Professor John Pate, and together we stayed in research for about 30 years, including the time when I got my dream job, which of course was my position at Kings Park. When that position came up for a display botanist and I managed to get it, I really thought this was my toe in to actually becoming a botanist doing research in a botanic garden. We were the first people to develop sophisticated tissue culture and the first people to do the cryo storage. That's the liquid nitrogen freezing of threatened species. It was a great interest of mine. It took us many years to finally crack it. We were running a restoration research lab, and there were about a third of native species we couldn't germinate, but they came up after a fire. And we started some research following on from a lead from some South African colleagues. And in 1995, we published the paper showing that, in fact, smoke, not heat and ash, was the major stimulator which makes the Western Australian and most Australian bushland areas burst into growth and blooming. Following that, with some amazing PhD students, I said, let's find the chemical. I'm sure we can do that. That was 11 years of hard slog until in 2004, we finally cracked it and made the world announcement. A new molecule to science. We called it carrick quinolide. Carrick from smoke, the Noongar word for smoke, and olide refers to the chemical nature of the molecule that we discovered. And it's on the backbone of that that we developed one of the largest restoration research groups in Australia, which today we carry on with my new position at Curtin University, which I joined in 2015, which is leading Australia in the science of rebuilding damaged landscapes. One of the great joys in my life is being able to merge that professional interest with, of course, my gardening interests. We experimented in the first year with seeing where the natives would grow because it was wet, quite dark, with quite rich soils for native species. But the advantage of the site that we've now put the native gardens through is one that was all cleared. So we're left with this bare soil, but it was north facing and it's free draining. So I thought this is the magic, because with natives, as long as they can get down to deep water, they don't want to be waterlogged and they want warmth and sunshine, we could probably win. So it's essentially a native garden for all seasons and all places. So one of the great joys is this garden, I've been able to grow one of Western Australia's rarest plants. It's this little aquatic plant. This is in its dormant phase, and soon, as the weather warms up, it'll start developing these big leaves, which are essentially Venus flytraps that trap small, unsuspecting animals in the water, and that's the way they get their nitrogen and their phosphorus. So it's the water wheel plant, Eldravanda, and it's a species that's become very rare because it depends upon high water quality. But we've got abundant water here, so I'm able to grow this very successfully. We like to think that the garden has elements of the Impressionist garden. It picks up elements of Monet, and we were so thrilled to finally build our mini version of a Monet bridge across one of the streams. But of course, Monet had a great fascination with things Japanese. And so we've carried the theme of the Japanese ethic in some parts of the garden in terms of the simplicity of plantings, but it's very much done through a European gardening and Australian gardening style. But along the way, we've been able to do things to really create that true Japanese feel. And the building of the tea house has been a long-term vision of ours, and we're really thrilled now that it's finally done and we can finally have cups of tea in a proper tea house. They call it matcha. Gardening is one of those basic human instincts that connects you with nature. As my Noongar colleagues say, it connects you to the land and to the spirit of the country. And gardening in a place like this is one of the most uplifting things I've ever done in my life, and it's one of the things we look forward to each weekend. God, we're sick of picking up sticks, raking leaves, fallen trees, pulling the weeds, but at the end of each day, we'll have a little drink somewhere in a special part of the garden, and always we get reminded that it's all been worthwhile and that the garden is giving back much more than we've put into it.